All right, how's everyone doing? I am introducing, just introducing the idea of research, just by having some fun with the blog or podcast, and then finding a scholarly article that enhances that blog or podcast. You don't have to write about it except for just one question in the quiz, and we're going to walk through that. And so you're not writing an essay over it. You're just practicing doing some research. All right. So before we get to now the Super Bowl next week is going to be a lot of fun, you guys. But anyway, so before we get to all that, where we're writing the essay and we're coming up with where we're coming up with our arguments and writing an essay. We're just doing some practice research. All right, so let me jump into it. So now the first quiz, we're going to go to these assessments. Let me view as a student, which I don't know. I think last time I viewed as a student, it didn't do too well for me. I couldn't see the quizzes, but anyway, we're gonna do this anyway. All right, so where are you at? Let me share my screen. Where am I? Drives me insane. Okay, I need the assessments. This. All right, assessments. There we go. Nope, that's launch meeting. Where's my screen? Assessments. Yes, share. All right. Sorry. Um, so here we have now this first block, this first quiz. It's right in the way. No, not pause. Don't pause it. Okay, so the first quiz that we did, the blog or podcast, which the 0 to 10 means that I haven't done it yet. Anyway, so this first analysis quiz, the blog or podcast, is just again where we found a blog or podcast that related to us and how it related and how we're the audience, right? And so now we want to do a second one, and we're going to look at a scholarly source that goes with the blog or podcast. And again, we're just introducing the idea of scholarly sources. So you don't have to use Google Scholar for this. You don't have to use the library, none of that. You can simply use a Google search. And we're going to get into using the library and all that. We're going to get into all that later on. So just make sure that you're following with me week by week. This can get really overwhelming, right? I can't give all that we're doing in the first couple weeks either, or else students would get incredibly overwhelmed also. So I can't stress enough how students really need to just follow week by week. All right, so let's make sure that we get this done by Friday or Saturday. It's available until Saturday. It's due Friday, but it's available until Saturday. If you wait till Saturday and something goes wrong, I'm not going to open it back up because you have to follow along. You have to be able to follow along and get these things done. And I'm about to poke in the grades for the last one. But anyway, all right, so this analysis quiz, I would like for us to find a source online that ends in .org, .gov, or .edu. Because sources that end in .org, .gov, and .edu are more scholarly than sources that do not. That sources end in .com or blogs or podcasts. They're scholarly, more scholarly. Not always just incredible, but they're more scholarly. And that's because sources that end in .org are from an organization. Sources that end in .gov are from a government source. And sources that end in .edu are from an educational source. So here's my example. Let's go to I'll open this up here in just a minute. I'm going to go to my YouTube. And let me pause this real quick. Let's make sure I'm going to pause the recording to make sure it's moving with me. All right, so again, here's my silly blogger podcast, right? Here's the one that I found, my Rachel Cooks with Love. All right, there's my Rachel Cooks with Love right here. And there's my Rachel Cooks with Love. And she's just walking us through how to make cinnamon rolls, right? That's all she's doing. I know she's putting the butter on them before she puts the cinnamon and sugar and all that. And I just like her. And so I found the scholarly source. She doesn't go into stress relief. She doesn't go into creativity. She doesn't go into any of that, right? She doesn't go into any of that. She just goes into, again, how to make cinnamon rolls. And she does a really good job of doing it. So I found this website, and all I put in was just health benefits of baking, right? Health benefits of baking. That was it. It doesn't have to be cinnamon rolls, just the health benefits of baking. And this is the website that I found. And it's from the Northern Healthcare, the mental health benefits of baking. I didn't put in mental, I just put the health benefits of baking, right? And so we have like some of the mental health benefits is stress relief. It enhances creativity, it boosts your mood, it stimulates the senses, it creates and strengthens relationships. So we have all these like mental health benefits of baking. Now this is I need to move. I'm sure you guys can see this, but it is a .org, northernhealthcare.org. It's from an organization, the Northern Healthcare. So it's more scholarly than, an article or a website. That's not. That's from a .com, right? And so how does this website help me understand my blogger podcast and myself? And that's what the quiz walks us through. The quiz walks us through how does it help us understand ourselves. Well, I got to go tell another instructor that I made coffee. I'll be right back. So, I had to tell another instructor I made some coffee. So anyway, we're the only two who drink our coffee. So that's what the quiz walks us through. So that's what I'm going to do is walk us through. Let's see if I can open it up as a student and not as a teacher. If there's a start assessment. I don't think there was a start assessment for me last time either. So I will have to do it as a teacher, which means I'll stop viewing as a student. Activities, assessments. All right, now let me share my screen again. So here's some, it says, for our first analysis quiz, we found a blog or podcast, which are not scholar. We should say it's a blog or which is not scholarly. Sorry. Blog or podcast, they are not scholarly. Which are not scholar is not scholar. It's not a scholarly source because I use the word or, which is not a scholarly source. There we go. Now I'm going to find a scholarly source that enhances the blog or podcast. Watch the tutorial video, which I'm making right now, for more information and complete the questions below. All right. Now these quizzes again are just for our to help us with our scroll with me. They're just to help us with our annotated bibliography to do that you do well, which we will do together in class here in a week or so once we find our sources. So here are our questions. First question is, who is the target audience of my scholarly source? The audience is probably very broad. And so here's my example from the mental health benefits from the Northern Healthcare. While my blog post walked me through how to make cinnamon rolls, this source details health benefits of baking. It should say mental health, but anyway, the target audience for both the podcast and the website are the same. They're both people who enjoy baking, right? So let's try to, again, use full sentences here, not just people who enjoy baking. Let's use full sentences, please. Please use full sentences. Please write in please. All right, so that's the first one. Just who is the target audience? The next one, okay, now let's narrow that target audience. Who is the narrow target audience for the scholarly website? Remember, to narrow the audience, we view ourselves and others like us as the audience. That's it. Because again, a 20-something or stay-at-home mom or dad or whomever, someone is staying at home, maybe watching a young child and left a career or something like that, or, hasn't quite gotten to that time of life. Someone who's staying at home making cinnamon rolls is going to view making cinnamon rolls just a little bit differently than I will. So being a middle-aged woman who has a career and has to balance all that, it's going to speak to me a little bit differently. So this article discusses such ideas as stress, creativity, and strengthening relationships. As a middle-aged woman, this article helps me grasp why I like the podcast and making cinnamon rolls. Since I have a career, I am creative, and I rarely see my mother. This article reminds me that baking is part of my identity, not just a hobby. So that's my narrow target audience is me, this 40-year-old woman. Please write in complete sentences. All right. Here. Please write in complete sentences. Here we go. All right. And then the third question, there's only 3 here. Now we just want to say, okay, well, what does the scholarly article add to the podcast? How does it enhance the podcast, right? So I enjoy the podcast, Rachel Cooks with Love, because Rachel cooks very well. She knows what she is doing. I know that by following her tutorials, I will not waste time and money. However, the scholarly source reminds me that baking is part of my identity. I forget that I bake to relieve stress, to be creative, and give beautiful and handmade gifts to my friends and family. This article also prompted me to bake with my mother next time. Something else that I want to point out, we really need to be using words like mother and father and not mom and dad. We need to be using words like children instead of kids. I don't really care so much in the quiz, but whenever we go to write the annotated bibliography, I'll definitely remind us to use these better word choice, have that better word choice. All right, so that's it. You just have to find a scholarly article that goes along with your blog or podcast and do the quizzes. I believe that's all that we are doing this week at the Comp 2 calendar. I should have a Comp 1 calendar at the top here also. Let's see. That's a Comp 2. That's a Comp 2. Let me pause this. I'm going to find my Comp 1 calendar real quick just to make sure, but I'm pretty sure that's all we're doing. So yeah, that is all. That's all that we're doing. If we look over to let me share the screen, but if we look over to our, what we're doing this week, all we're doing is research tutorial video, which is what I'm making, discover a source on your own, which is that .org, .edu, and .com, or .com. We went straight from .com, and do the analysis quiz. That's all that we're doing. So exactly what I just walked us through. It took me 30 minutes to do it. And so you shouldn't take too long doing it. All right. So I'm gonna stop share and guys, let me know if you have any questions. But please, like I said, don't get overwhelmed. Just go one step at a time with me because it can be a little overwhelming when you try to take on this entire online course at once. That's the problem with online courses is that you kind of see too much at one time. And that's why I try to block things off and that's why I try to, like I said, block things off and make things invisible when you don't need to see them. And so don't get overwhelmed and go one step at a time. So take care.